is the start of a really exciting phase for us, because Nina and I have been working together on developing a policy position in line with what our members are doing and what our members are aspiring to do at the European level, and that is to mobilize communities throughout Europe to transform society from the bottom up and to establish more regenerative, more fair institutions through community-led action. And that's actually what this Communities for Future program is about, which is aiming to scale up community-led action up until 2030 and beyond, because we are in a critical phase right now for climate action and for environmental action. So we initiated this program to really address the crisis that we're facing. So this session, we are going to present a little bit more about our work at ECOLISE, what is Communities for Future about, and then we will do a check-in, so you can all also mention where you're from. That will be through the chat and through a bit of an engaging process on a question together. Then we're going to introduce the European Green Deal and how it matters to community-led initiatives. And afterwards, we're going to give an overview of what is this whole policy position about, how can you take part in it, what is our current state of the art. And we will have some breakout rooms on different topics where you can then also engage in conversations with us. We do want to kind of exemplify this consultation process that's going to happen throughout October, so that you can kind of get a sense of what we're trying to do here already at this kickoff event. But of course, we cannot go too much into the details today, but that will follow later. And then, we will also have a summary and next steps. And that's basically it. So for now, I'd like to just give you a short introduction to ECOLISE. For those of you who don't know ECOLISE yet, it's a European network of community-led initiatives on climate change and sustainability. It has 48 members in 17 European countries, and many of the associations that are represented at ECOLISE are part of the eco-village movement or the transition town movement, the permaculture movement. And then we also have some research institutes that are joining, and also some members within the LEADER program that are joining us. So it's a quite broad coalition, but with a similar aim, which I've mentioned already. And our main activities are around those particular topics and actions that you can see here on the right. So with Communities for Future and in general, we want to understand better what are actually the limitations and the potentials of community-led initiatives in addressing this multifaceted social and ecological crisis. So there's a lot of research going on. We also want to enable collaboration between our members so that they can exchange, that they can learn from each other. What are the best practices on the ground? How can we scale them up? How can we transform together? And then we also do advocacy work, which is basically one of the main pillars that Nina and I are working on, because all of this action can only happen at a larger scale within a policy framework that's enabling for the whole population. For currently, it's a niche movement, and we really need political changes at the European level so that this can happen. So that's for now. This is a short introduction, and now we would like to get a little bit more to know you. So if you could answer this question in the Mentimeter, the question is: imagine we are in the year 2030 and have managed collectively to overcome the planetary crisis. What has changed on the local level? So now, Abdul, I would like to invite you to share the link to the Mentimeter. Can you do that?
Yeah, and we have participants already clicking and getting ready.
Perfect.
So you have a bit of time to answer this question. So the link is in the chat, and then you can participate and answer about this question.
No. All right. There's no correct answer. So what can we see here? Let me, Abdul, you're sharing your screen, right?
Yes.
So yeah, so here it says, so first answer, on the local level, you can see permaculture principles being practiced on the ecological level as well as social. You will see lots of communities. More needs are being met locally, social fabrics are tighter. Social and natural systems are seen as profoundly linked by policymakers. Much less private transport moved by fossil fuels, regenerative agriculture, and more cohesion and synergy between community-led initiatives in a local bioregion. This is a really nice first impression, and yeah, we hope that we can capture some of that, what is mentioned here already, also in our policy position. And so I will now hand it over to Nina, so you can then also continue.
Yes, thank you, Amelie. So I will share my screen, or Amelie, would you be able to share the presentation? Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
So the question is, thank you, Amelie, and thank you to all of you for these great answers. Because why are we here today is because Amelie and I, we are the policy team of ECOLISE, which is the organization, association behind Communities for Future. Communities for Future is the action program, ECOLISE is the organization. And we have put together, we've taken 3 months to put together 10 theses on what would transformational, community-led local development policies look like. And I keep saying, you know, you can say this sentence really quick, like transformational, community-led local development policies, which is what we usually do. Or you can take time and plunge really into the meaning of the sentence, and that's what we've done. So we have 10 theses now, which in our view express what we as ECOLISE, or rather we as the team at ECOLISE plus core members think, what should transformational community-led local development policies look like? So out of this sentence, we've come up with 10 theses. Why have we done this? I'm sure you're all aware of the time pressure. I mean, who would not be being here virtually with us in this room? There is a Paris Agreement, and all the pledges of the Paris Agreement don't yet add up. So even if the member states who have pledged to keep emissions and warming of the Earth under 1.5 degrees or 2 degrees, even if these national contributions, as they are called, would be held, so implemented, my navigator in my electric car would say you might not make it. So the next slide will show us the European Green Deal. And this is basically Europe's answer to the Paris Agreement, but also to the Convention on Biological Diversity. So it's the first, let's say, essay, an attempt to answer the planetary crisis in a holistic way, not looking only at emissions nor biodiversity, but looking basically at at society overall. And the Green Deal, and that's the basic reason why we're doing this work. Green Deal is hanging here, so it's hanging on an EU level. Thank you for this change. And we are at local levels. And the big question is now, how do these levels get together? And our sense is that this is really a take-off moment, and the researchers amongst you might know this slide. So basically it's a theory on transformation, which is rather a transition theory by Gales, a researcher. And it says that niche innovation, so that which grows, grassroots innovation, socio-ecological innovations, can, influence the regime level, which is the socio-technical regime, which is, for example, policies at the EU level. And the socio-technical landscape is climate change. So our thinking is that this is the right moment for community-led initiatives on climate and sustainability, which is ECOLISE and its members, to really have a say and position ourselves towards the European Green Deal. Why? I am aware of the fact that there is a lot of political apathy also amongst community-led initiatives. So that's everywhere. Citizens, CLIs, as we call them, community-led initiatives. But Amelie and I especially are convinced that the European Green Deal is a window of opportunity. So it kind of shows there is a potential paradigm shift at the EU level. What is needed to make this answer, which is globally the most ambitious answer to the planetary crisis in political form, what is needed right now is citizen support and community support to have a better European Green Deal. Just one break or make date, 2024, the European elections to the European Parliament. If we have another setup in the European Parliament than we have right now, it could be that the whole European Green Deal, which is a glimmer of hope, is weakened or scrapped. So no, it's not a natural phenomenon to have a European Green Deal. It really takes a lot of work to make it happen. That's why we think ECOLISE needs to get engaged. This was kind of a pitch for, why should communities seize the opportunity and get engaged? Because it takes a lot of resources and time. And we see that the European Green Deal has its challenges. And, if we implement solutions at this point in time, I'm sure all of you agree they better be the right solutions, because we have about 3 to 5 years to act. So what's interesting is that the European Green Deal is hanging here. And the question, how do we get it to local levels, is unresolved. This is not because the European Commission isn't aware that it needs to be localized, but it's in the nature of our political system. The EU can only go so far. And at a certain point, which is exactly the member states' point, there needs to be, the member states basically trickling down with the European Green Deal legislation to local levels. So we have chosen this nice picture. Could you just go back, sorry, Amelie, of the tree? Because we often hear, bottom up, top down. So there is a lot of, resistance also by community-led initiatives to get involved with European levels of politics. But we argue that actually it's like in a tree, there is no up and down. Everything could be working together. And looking at the short time frame that we have, what is needed is really growing from the grassroots and trickling down from the canopy. And now the next slide will show you where are we in our process. So I've said that we've taken since June internally in ECOLISE, but also with a scientific review group and the core team, which includes the council, to work on 10 theses towards transformative community-led local development policies. We've done this because we think it's important to offer points of conversation to members, to partners, and to policy stakeholders. So these 10 points are kind of offers for conversation, and they are meant as offers for conversation to you, to members, local action groups, researchers, policy stakeholders. And by the end of October, we would like to arrive at a point where each of these theses is in a state. Now it's, I guess, imperfect, and what is perfect, but we would like to arrive at a state where these theses are able to group partners together. So we're looking for an alliance, and also theses which are interesting enough to go out with them and talk to policymakers on EU levels, but also on local levels. So if you have a list of theses with you, and you can take part in conversations with your municipality, that would also be one of the goals. The next slide. Over to you, Amelie.
Yes, okay. So exactly, that's a bit the general process, and now in the more detailed instructions for you to engage with this process, there are several steps along the way. One of the steps would be that you can join in participating through commenting in the Google Doc. So there is this all these theses are outlined in this document. We will share the link with you afterwards, and then you can see, comment and read the document and comment and make your suggestions, and we will review that in the beginning of November and integrate what has been mentioned as best as possible. Of course, it also needs to align with our members' values. So we will also have a meeting together with members and our council to finally confirm the final outcome. You can also give feedback through filling in a survey that we prepared. So that would be several questions around this document, but then also more around the process, and if you want to become a partner, what's your organization, and just giving some more insights into your position. And then we will have a few events coming up. So one would be that we have regular office hours now in October. So we have 3 Thursdays planned where it's open, it's public, and everyone can participate who's interested from 5 to 6 on 3 Thursdays in October, starting on the 13th. And then you can also take part in our upcoming events, which will be more, more dedicated less open and more formalized in the way that we handle it. Here, those events are outlined. So today is the kickoff event, and then we will have the 10 theses on transformative community-led local development consultation as a follow-up event. And then on the 8th of November, this will be our validation with members and the council. And then finally, on the 28th of November, there will be the policy stakeholder event towards the EU stakeholders, which we're organizing jointly with the European Economic and Social Committee. So that's basically the short-term idea of this process, is that you can become a partner and support the theses by signing up for that, by engaging in this consultation phase. But it's not really meant to be a complete co-creation phase where we start together at zero, but we have already something outlined, and we just want to revise that and strengthen that, and that's what we would like to ask from you. And in 2023, we're planning a co-creation phase, which goes into specific policy fields of the European Green Deal, such as food and energy, housing. And in that context, we would then also invite you to join. So that was a lot of information. So for now, I'll hand it over to Abdul, who will do an energizer with us, so we can continue to listen and afterwards discuss.
Sounds good. Do we keep the Mentimeter as an energizer as well, about the knowledge about the European Green New Deal? What do you think?
For now, it's fine. Abdul.
No, it's fine. All right. All right. So for this exercise, I need everyone to the maximum participants with their camera on.
Thank you, Abdul. So I think we're now getting ready for the breakout rooms. Up. Exactly. So the first breakout room, and we're going to show you the 2 questions for these breakout rooms on the slide. So you can see Amelie's So basically the 2 questions we have to you is, how important are transformational local development policies for you personally, so for your institution and for your project? That's one question, and there will be 25 minutes in the small breakout rooms. And the second question is really, how could ECOLISE's consultation process be relevant for you or for your institution? And that's more a question already about partnering, because what we want with today's event is really get you as an individual to, as an organization or an individual, to give input to the 10 theses. So we have this Google Doc, and we're working on the fact that the link will be open to everyone to comment on the Google Doc. So input is one thing. And the second thing is really, we would love to speak with a united voice, with a louder voice of community-led initiatives and partners. So if your institution, your organization says, there could be something in it, how to localize the European Green Deal, how to give strength to grassroots initiatives, that's just my cup of tea. So these 2 questions are on, and now I think Abdul will send us into breakout rooms, and we will surface from these breakout rooms after 25 minutes. Each room will have hopefully a facilitator, and we would need someone to take notes. And we will give you the slides, access to the slides, where you can also find access to the harvesting dock in all the breakout rooms. Abdul, is that right? Are you going to send us off?
Let's go.
For this experience in the breakout rooms, and I'll have a quick time check. It's now 4 o'clock. So it would be great to have group outcomes. We have 10 minutes for this, so maybe we have one person per group who could say, how many groups did we have, Abdul? 5?
Five groups.
5. So you could have like 1 to 2 minutes per group, and it doesn't need to be one person speaking, but it would be great to hear every group. So who would like to start? Nobody would like to start.
Maybe to speed it up, I will call for the group number 1. There was Lina, Benedict, William, and Mike. Who among the 4 of you would like to share your insights?
I would be really grateful if someone could do it, because my internet connection is a bit unstable at the moment. Maybe Mika, since you were taking the notes.
Yeah, I was taking notes so I can say something. Yeah, what was really interesting is that we talk about the importance of to connect the different political levels. We were sure about that it's important to have the politics involved, and also to cooperate and to inspire each other in the different levels, and that we can really also learn together. And it is about transformation in a moment, and yeah, we have to combine also ecological, social, food issues together, and local-led initiatives are very good in it because we have all in it. That's it for me in the moment.
Great, thank you, Mike. So I guess the second breakout room was my breakout room, but maybe someone from the breakout room, so Laurence or Duncan or Juan or Martine would like to report what we said. If nobody feels up to saying anything, okay. Well, what I found interesting is the first question. We kind of talked about the personal reasons why local development policies are important for each of us. And actually, each of us, I think, had a reason. So there was one project by Duncan in Lisbon, which is about regeneration of a river which runs through Lisbon and runs through 3 parishes. So it's under different administrative, remits. And the big question is how to speak to the municipality as the overarching entity, and to speak to the parishes at the same time. So to me, it sounded a bit like a bioregional issue where, the river doesn't stop at the administrative border, but we really need to look at rivers in a bioregional approach rather. Then we had Juan of ECOLISE telling us about a project where he is trying to establish a co-housing project for 20 families in a village, and the reaction of the municipality and the villagers was kind of guarded, because 20 people, families in one housing project is nothing that the village was used to before. And Juan actually said that citing or quoting or showing the municipality similar transformational local development policies at other places that are working already actually change the municipality's mind. So for example, access to land, how can you do that? A city land bank, or just having a co-housing project, which is in the vein of eco-villages. It does exist elsewhere. Laurence of the Good Lobby talked about her plans to become a farmer. So there, the one of the key issues was, coming in as a newcomer into a rural area. How do you come across as being worthy to be welcomed and not as a wise urbanite who knows everything about regenerative agriculture? But also, and that I found very interesting, if you're over 40, and many of us are over 40 here, you're no longer young, you're not supported in this conversion, which we all have to make, so in this transformational change. So how to make funding accessible for everyone. And I think that was it from breakout room 2. Anything to add? No. Then breakout room 3, there was Felipe Quintao in it, Zoran, Anna Parizana, Ricardo, and Jofi. Who of you would like to take the word?
Yeah, I guess I can give a summary as I took the notes. So the general reception of the policy positioning process is quite positive. It's full of curiosity, and the breakout room participants have a different experiences and, let's say, success rate in terms of cooperating with the local government or policymakers on national and regional levels. And yeah, those who have less success, hoping that by participating in this process could help in finding a common word or inspiration or tools to approach a local government. Felipe mentioned, for example, that currently they are a bit far from these discussions due to lack of capacity, but they are very interested in bringing these conversations to higher levels, national and regional levels. Yeah, overall, everyone thought that it's a very promising step to launching this process, and there was a big openness in participating in the further discussions and developing the 10 theses.
Wonderful. I'm very happy to hear that. So thank you, Jofi. Now there is breakout room 4 with Julia Neri, David Philip, Abdul, Paulina. Who of you would like to take the word and let us know what happened?
Well, I could start and then maybe some others might join in. So we had 2 ECOLISE staff in our little room, but we had quite a lively little conversation, and I think some synergies with what's already been said. So I think the first one, how important are transformational local development practices or policies? I think we started with sort of looking at the need to define transformational. It can be defined in many ways, but I think definitely one of the ways that our community-led initiatives might be transformational is that they are more holistic. They're seeing the synergies in an ecosystem or bioregion more and more. So I think there's something there, but there's also the transformational part of the worldview shift that's needed from the reductionist to a more systemic way. And a lot of our movements and networks are coming from that more holistic, systemic approach. There definitely needs to be coherence in policy. And again, that shows reductionism, that we set a policy for energy, for food security, for mental health, for rural regeneration, and they all go in different ways. there's something that needs to be more coherent. We looked at the need for, and this is definitely a role that I've always thought ECOLISE holds, as well as coordinating us to influence the policy from our unique, resilient, regenerative, bottom-up, more systemic approach. There needs to be help, I think, for members and for local community-led initiatives to understand how, where the mechanisms are for them to avail of any support of. And Green Deal, we went into a little, the Green New Deal is very much an overarching framework with lots of potential areas that might support local initiatives. So there's a need to, as much as we can, to influence that policy with a more systemic, a more regenerative approach, but there's also a need to help us navigate where we might get support. So that was one thing. On the how could ECOLISE process be relevant for our institutions, we had started a bit of a conversation about almost the need for translation. I'm working in with the very rural communities with very traditional ways of thinking, and sometimes the language that we use naturally in our movements is confusing, off-putting. It turns people off, or they don't think they're smart enough because we're using these languages. So there is some sort of need to translate what we are talking about sometimes. And just again, just to finish, I'll just restate, I think, what I've heard in each of the rooms now. We need that bioregional approach. We need to connect these sub-local or community-led initiatives that might be great. Here's a community-supported farm. There's a co-housing initiative. There's a local food co-op. There's a food hub using digital platform. These need to now be acting in concert in a local place, in a territory that's joined up, that's more coherent, supporting local economies, shortening vulnerable supply chains, and really building the resilience of that place to cope with what is going to be a shit show by the end of the year. So how do we do that through European policy? Don't know. Good questions. Okay, I'll just stop there before I ramble on too much.
Thank you, Davy. There is room number 5, which has Sarah and Jean-Pierre, I think, and Siska. Who of you would like to take the voice? No, take the voice, you don't say that. Take the word.
Take the mic.
Take the mic.
I can share briefly about our conversation. So we had an interesting group. 2 of the people were completely new to this policy work, another 2 have been working on it, one for 25 years and another one also similar to it. But in general, this session was very much about us clarifying what this consultation process is about and how it will work. In general, there was an agreement of the need for innovation that the CLLD asks for, also the relevance of this policy work and the groundbreaking work of ECOLISE. It was mentioned that this is interesting not only for the EU country members, but it can be followed and inspiring to other geographies as well. Also that the diversity that is going on the local level has to be known and made valuable in the policies that are to be designed. And there's a genuine interest and needs to support this, to connect and support this process, which this document of the 10 theses will really inspire more of these ways to connect and support, and yeah, interest also in continuing following this process.
Thanks a lot, Sarah. So thanks a lot. I think the breakout rooms show that basically there is a common energy and a chemistry at work already. And the work of the 10 theses, and I will show my screen now because I think that Amelie's connection is bad, so forgive me for taking a bit to do that.
Yeah, my connection is really bad at the moment, so it would be great if someone else could share their screen. Abdul, you also offered it, right?
Thank you. Sorry, yeah, whatever. So the question came up on how can you participate, and basically ECOLISE and Communities for Future are inviting members and partners. By partners, we also mean potential partners, because we want to reach out to change makers, and they're everywhere. So be it in other NGOs, be it in, European Commission, because in the European Commission and in policies or MEPs, there are everywhere, there are change makers. So we see this plopping up of change everywhere. And we want to have this conversation with members, so internally with ECOLISE members, but also externally with partners, future and present. So how to participate? Well, we just thought in this recording, because this will be recorded and people can still have a look at it afterwards and do the process themselves, we want to show you how. And in the next slide, I'll just present you, one of the theses. And when I talk about the theses, we could share the document actually for a moment. Abdul, would you be able to share the 10 theses? Now, Abdul gets too many tasks at once. Right, and then you go to the content 10 theses. Exactly. So here you can see the document, and we've shared the link in the chat, and we can do that again. There was a problem with
It is solved.
accessing.
Problem is solved.
Hey, wow, wonderful. So, so I'll just put that into the chat again for everyone to see. And you can just check out if you have access to this document. And this document is basically where we would like you to comment, and always comment with your name, and if you have an organization, with your organization, so we know who's commenting and we can contact you. And we would invite you to really plunge into the depths of these 10 theses. And you can see the first one starts with, why do we need transformational change? So the 10 theses cover each word of the sentence: transformational, community-led, local, development, policies, and they ask questions about each of these words. So they're really an attempt to plunge into the meaning of the sentence and come up with something which local communities can hold in their hands and go to the municipalities and discuss, but which also people on an EU level can use and go to European policy makers, which is what we will do on the 28th of November with our main policy stakeholder event together with the European Economic and Social Committee as a co-hosting partner, and hopefully lots of other partners who have joined us in this process. So this is the document, and you should all have a commenting role. And Abdul, could you please go back to the slideshow? Because what we're going to do now is show you how do these theses work? Because we have done 10 theses, a bit because the long sentence needs 10 theses, and a bit also thinking because it's a nice number. And here I have picked one thesis which I find especially important, just to tell you how is the structure of the thesis and which input can you give. So this thesis that I've picked is one which came up in the breakout rooms and it's asked, so why do we need this connection? I think Mike was it who mentioned it, connection between European level and local level. So this is the question this thesis asks. And why do we need binding local plans for socio-ecological transformation? So Abdul, if you could go to the next slide.
Nina, can I just make a quick comment? It came up in the chat with Manu,
Yeah.
the same thing. Why are we using the word thesis? It
We're
sounds
using
academic and is off-putting, I think.
Yeah, thesis is because at this stage, these 10 offers for conversation are offers for conversation. And our thinking is that we don't want to come across as saying, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but we really want to engage in conversations. These theses can and should change their character in the course of the consultation process. So if we come up with something which says in the end, these are our strong 10 demands, great. If we say these are our 10 biggest questions, equally great. So thesis is a bit a placeholder because we're in a consultation phase and we invite you to really model the thesis into either questions or demands or whatever. So it's an open process. So this is the thesis. So it's basically about why should community-led initiatives, why on earth should they work together with the European level? Don't we have enough work? That's the question. And the next slide is basically presenting the challenge. So the theses are all the same structure. What's the challenge at hand? The challenge, as you all know, is that we are dealing with a wicked problem, and it's not as if, Davy in Ireland with Cultivate, a community-led initiative, could say, hey, I'm just gonna, do it. Fine. Problem out of the world. Wicked problem means it's a systemic view, so we need everyone to take part in the solution. This also means that, we have different levels, and the Paris Agreement or the Convention on Biological Diversity, they hang even further above the EU level. So this is where the combined knowledge of the IPCC is, of the 2,500 scientists working on the reports. So we have knowledge coming from here, we have international agreements, and we also have grassroots initiatives. And basically this thesis is about how do we connect them. You remember the picture of the tree, right? And the next slide, Abdul, will always is about, okay, this is the challenge and what can community-led initiatives bring? And here we have a description that says that CLIs, and that is obviously true for maybe most of CLIs, but not for all. But Davy, you mentioned it. At least the wish is there and the knowledge that there is such a thing as a systemic approach. And a systemic approach, I think what strikes me most about the systemic is that you actually connect your own place in the system with the system. So you don't go pointing finger and say, you are the bad ones, but you look at it systemically. And it also means, we've talked about this, that, for example, you don't look at a region and cut it up in administrative pieces, but you go, okay, this is a bioregion because there's the watershed. We don't have access to drinking water, so what do we do together as a bioregion? So that's what community-led initiatives can bring. Act local, think global is an old rallying cry. And then the next phase of the thesis, and Abdul, if you could show us the next slide, is always, what's the link to the European Green Deal? Because I said it in the beginning, the European Green Deal could potentially be a paradigm shift in policy making. And it is, that's already a reality, the first policy answer on a big scale to the planetary crisis. What's the link to the European Green Deal? The interesting information here is that the EGD, or the European Green Deal, does not yet have a plan. So there is no plan. You know, how do we bring the EGD to the local levels? How do we implement the binding laws? And that's really where the European level has a lot of influence, because they are doing binding laws, which then force the member states to act. And there are, in specific, there are two binding laws which I find amazing. So the climate law, which says 55% reduction of emissions by 2030, and the nature restoration law, which says, 50% of nature protected and restored by 2050. So these are wonderful laws. How do we get them to local levels? The plans that are there are almost non-existent, I would say, not because the EU doesn't know about this problem, but because it needs member states, it needs local levels to really take up the baton, one could say. And the EU has started initiatives like the Rural Pact or the Climate Pact, reaching out to citizens, but it has not yet started to reach out to collective actions, to communities. So there's always this level of the individual. And Abdul, if you could show us the next slide. So in this thesis, we demand basically that there should be binding local plans. I mean, to me, if you do project management, it's obvious, if you want to get somewhere, you have to have a plan. So, I mean, we need local plans, and they should ideally be in line with the European Green Deal, if not better. And also a bio-regional approach is really what local development could be about, just taking into account the natural characteristics of a region and not only the administrative political ones. At the same time, saying this, local plans, that kind of, some people get goosebumps because they say, this sounds like the EU level will overpower the local level. And that's always the field of movement we're in. So we need a lot of space for experimentation, for socio-ecological niches, as there are community-led initiatives, but space and autonomy also for the smallest level in local governments, the villages and the communities. This is an essay. It's how do you say? It's an essay. It's we try to make a political demand to be very concrete and to connect to the European Green Deal. And if we come to the next slide, each thesis also, because as you all know, when you speak to politicians or someone else, they won't know what you're talking about unless they can experience it. Bringing everyone to good practices is hard, so we can show them to people in Brussels and municipal local governments. So we can show, for example, here there is a project in South Devon, UK about bioregioning. And that's Davy Phillip who suggested this as a good practice. And this is really also where we call on all of you. This section on good practices needs filling. So all the ideas, all the examples you might know, please help us and put them into the document. And the last bit, Abdul, is scientific evidence. You've heard about evidence-based policy making. So policymakers react when there is science behind it, which is why we have science policy interfaces such as the IPCC. And that's just an example, Molly Scott Cato on bioregions, just to clarify what are we talking about. And the last bit in each of the structure is actually, and this I find the most interesting one, because ECOLISE is not the only and not the first one to, think about how can the EGD, the European Green Deal, be localized. So similar demands by partners, that's what we're looking for in this process. Does your organization already have similar demands? Here is an example from Green Deal Going Local from the Committee of the Regions. So they are working actually on this localization, and we are reaching out to the Committee of the Regions in this process and actually asking them to give input to this consultation process as well. This is now the whole structure of the thesis. And Abdul, if you click once more, in the breakout rooms, what we want to do is really to take this thesis that I've just presented, and you probably realize that it's quite an extensive thesis about multi-level governance. Why do we need this connection, bioregions? So I'd like you to take this one thesis and in small breakout rooms of 4 to 6 people, just go through the thesis and the structure and play with it, experience it, see how this giving input works. Because we don't invite you to give input to everything, because this would be really a lot of work. But we've done, these different structures in the thesis, good practice examples. Maybe you are someone who likes good practices, who knows about them. Science, we've got a lot of scientists in the room. So you can pick your bit where you can and want to give input. So I suggest that we go into this process now just to practice this input giving, because there are 2 ways of giving input. One is directly into this thesis. And then for everyone actually who would like to be involved in the process, we would ask you to fill in the survey as well. And the survey will give us your contact details and let us know about you a little more. And I've put the link to this survey into the chat. So you can either go into the Google Doc and be really in depth giving input, or simply fill out the survey. But the survey is kind of obligatory so that we have your contact if you want to participate in the process. Can you please answer my questions?
So, yes, so I think the best way to answer to Maya's question is to come back at the beginning about the why.
Sorry, can I just, there are a lot of words I know, like I know what Green Deal is, I know everything, but I want to like more concrete answer, like the relation, ECOLISE partners. What are we doing? What is expected for us? Why are we here? Also, what's the impact that with this action ECOLISE envisions? And I don't know, from how it will be measured, where it will be seen, how will the ECOLISE support partners? I mean, also in financial sense, and what's there for us after, because there is a work that we'll be doing if we want to enter as partners. So
yeah,
this is something it hasn't been clear for me until now.
Yeah, so basically, why are we doing this? Is that community-led initiatives and collective action does not yet have a voice on the EU level, a strong enough voice. And this has, an impact also on funding, for example, so support structures. But there are also legal barriers which need to be removed. And one of the 10 theses, it's actually the 10th, is about these very concrete problems. So what we aim to do with the 10 theses, when they are in a kind of more perfect state, is to go to EU policymakers and start an advocacy campaign, which will go on in next year, and which will also be about specific policy fields such as food and energy systems. And that will give us as ECOLISE, but also as members of ECOLISE and community-led initiatives, an opportunity to talk to EU policymakers and to show them the good things happening and to come up with very concrete political demands. Because policymakers will only react when you're very concrete and when you say, I contribute. So I am part of the solution to this planetary crisis. So this is in the direction of EU policymakers. For community-led initiatives, these 10 theses should ideally be also a guiding document, because we will have a 2-pager with these 10 theses and a longer format for those who want to read and delve into it. But the 2-pager could ideally be for community-led initiatives or local action groups, you know, a kind of thing that you take with you when you go to your municipality, when you want to discuss transformational local development policies, when you're a local action group and you're actually influencing the local development policies, you could take it as an offer for conversation. So this process is very much about policy influencing, in the hope to make the European Green Deal better, to localize it, and to give community-led initiatives more autonomous space and time to do their work, but also lead their lives. That's how I would put it. Now I've been off onto a trajectory, I just realized. Does this answer your question, Maya?
No, but thank you anyway.
No, Maya, we invite you to take part in the conversations which we will be leading all through October. So please fill in this survey and just leave your name and your contact, and we will get in touch with you. And that's exactly why we have October reserved for these in-depth conversations, in order to talk about questions such as these. Now we've got, do we have a timekeeper somewhere here?
We're only 10 minutes late, which
Only
is
10 minutes
great.
late. Oh, okay, great. So should we go ahead with the breakout rooms, or do you feel you know what's expected of you now? Yes, you should never ask questions. So Abdul, I suggest that we split into breakout rooms, and we will have one facilitator and note keeper, and the breakout rooms are actually only for you to understand, you know, what are the theses about, what's their structure, how could you give input, and that's it. So we'll see each other in 20 minutes because we have a bit of overtime.
Yeah, maybe to give a clear expectation. So each group is expected to look at one thesis and dive into it, and so you can choose one of the 10s and question it and start working and starting commenting. Yes.
Yeah, and you could, if you want to have less work, just choose thesis number 7, which is the one I've just presented to you, and just start your giving input on this thesis. That would be also an option.
All right, let's go.
Sorry, thank you, Abdul. Thanks to all of you. That was interesting. We did thesis on human nature relationship and got lots of good input already. So Abdul, I would like to go back to the slides. If you could take us back. Thank you. So basically, we tried to show you how to give input, and you can give input by filling in the survey, which is how we know who wants to participate in this process. There is also a question in the survey about whether you and your organization want to partner in this process. Partnering, the question came up in the chat, basically means supporting the 10 theses at the outcome in the main policy stakeholder event on the 28th of November, and also participating in a co-creation phase, which is going to happen in 2023, where after having established this joint, let's say, basis of a shared vision of what transformational local development policies could be, this shared vision will then lead us to look at specific policy fields like food systems and energy systems. That's a suggestion for now. Mike just talked about the relevance of water. This will play a role in the food systems as well. So this is how we envisage the process. You can then give input in the Google Doc, where you can comment, always with your name and your organization, and take part in the upcoming events, because we offer on the 19th of October a follow-up event where we will discuss the input given so far. On the 8th of November is actually after the closing date, which is 1st of November. On the 8th of November, we want to have a validation session. So mainly with members of ECOLISE, where we say, yes, that's how we want to go out with. And on the 28th of November, we will go public with these 10 theses towards policymakers. And we're going to do this with our operation partner, the European Economic and Social Committee, EESC. So this is the process, and now it is 17:02. So I invite you to ask questions. Abdul, if you can go one step back in the slides. We also have Amelie and I each Thursday, as Amelie said, starting with the 13th of October, from 5 to 6 p.m., you can just talk to us. If you fill the survey and say, I want to talk to the policy team at ECOLISE, then we'll send you a Zoom link. So the 19th of October is there for everyone to join again from 4:30 to 6. And the individual, let's say, calls are possible on Thursdays, 13th of October, between 5 and 6. We'll make this recording available to you and the presentation slides, so you can always refer back to that, and we'll send all of the participants a mail, so you've got everything in one mail. Nevertheless, it's 17:03, I guess, 4. Are there any questions that you really need to ask now? That's really not a nice way of asking. Are there any questions? I'm just worried about the time.
Are there any questions that would benefit everyone here?
Yes, thank you, Abdul. Great. I mean, thanks to all of you. And I would like to make a final gesture which expresses how I feel about this session. I feel really touched. And I thank you all for the time and the resources you have given today. And I would also ask Amelie to say something at the end, if your internet allows it.
Yeah, I mean, it was really, really nice to finally have this event and yeah, present our state of the art of the work that we've been doing over the last months. And I also really enjoyed the different conversations in the breakout rooms. Unfortunately, I couldn't participate in all of it because of my internet struggles, but in the end, I think everyone was engaged, and that's what matters to me. So looking forward to, yeah, really getting your feedback on these theses and then including that in the final outcome. Yep.
So thanks to all of you and thanks to the team of ECOLISE. And as I said, I'm very grateful for the time that you invested in this meeting. See you in our bilateral meetings on the 19th of October. And please just write us an email if you have any questions. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
See you.
soon.
Bye-bye. Thanks
Thanks,
for your
everyone.
work.
Mhm.
Continue.
Bye.
Bye.